Well, after a shocking revelation next week, many characters have to endure many sacrifices in another great episode. Hey guys, Hammer for the Americans, Season 5, Episode 7, The Committee on Human Rights, and I was definitely really looking forward to this episode, especially with the way last week's episode turned out. I thought this episode would be really great because from the looks of it, it looked like this entire episode was essentially going to be a conversation between Gabriel and Paige getting to know Gabriel, and then just getting to know each other, and I was definitely really looking forward to that. Unfortunately, though, to my surprise, that's not what this episode was. This episode had one scene between Paige and Gabriel, and the rest of the episode was kind of the characters, making sacrifices and things like that, which I thought was fine, but I'm not gonna lie, that did slightly disappoint me. I thought the episode, they could have done a lot more between Paige and Gabriel, and the episode kind of wasted that opportunity. This was still a great episode, don't get me wrong. This was still a great episode. There were some really great scenes going on here, some really sad stuff, definitely. Probably the saddest episode of the season, even though the entire season has really kind of been depressing. The entire show's really been depressing, honestly. But this particular episode, I just thought they kind of wasted a couple stuff. So I was a bit disappointed with the way things turned out. Still loved it. Still thought this was an amazing episode. I just thought that there was some stuff they could have done a little bit better. But let's just get into this episode. So we start off right where last week left off. We see Philip and Elizabeth have brought their daughter Paige to the safe house, as we know. And Gabriel's thrilled to finally meet Paige. He explains to her their parents are heroes and they have sacrificed themselves for the greater good. And basically tries to, tell her the pros of everything. This is why you should trust them and things like that. And he commands Paige on how she has handled the shocking news about her parents' secret lives. And yeah, I mean, she's definitely done that quite well. She's done a very good job with handling all that stuff. Unfortunately, that's all we get between this confrontation between those two, which I was very disappointed with. I was really hoping we'd get more between those two, especially since we know Gabriel's leaving. I feel like now would have been the perfect time for those two to have some sort of scene together, and the fact that that didn't happen very much did disappoint me. I really thought they could have done more regarding that particular confrontation, but unfortunately, they didn't. Gabriel ended up leaving. Gabriel ended up kind of like going on his way, and we have a couple more scenes with him, but most of the episode focuses on like other stuff because we see Philip and Elizabeth talk to her about how Gabriel gave her this blanket all these years ago, and I thought it was a nice scene. I just felt they could have done a lot more with this particular confrontation. I just felt they kind of wasted that opportunity. Again, the rest of the episode is fine. I felt like they definitely could have done more with that, in my personal opinion. But I like what we got. I definitely did like what we got. I just wanted more there. But at the FBI office, Stan and Adderholt are receiving a phone call from a Russian woman they have reached out to. Apparently, she's very interested in working with them after they offered to make sure that she and her son lived comfortably. Remember, we saw her last week, and it seems like she actually is. It seems like they actually are possibly getting through to her, and I don't know if they're going to use her so they don't have to get Oleg, so they can get someone else in exchange for Oleg, but that seems like that's kind of what they're trying to do. As we know, Stan wants to keep Oleg in Russia for as long as possible. He wants him to be able to stay there. He knows why Oleg wants to be there, so he wants to try to keep him as safe as he possibly can. I think he wants this woman to replace him, but the question is his boss really going to agree to that? We can see how determined his boss is to get someone like Oleg, so is he really going to agree to this? We'll have to see how that turns out. Tonight, Elizabeth then throws into disguise, and she heads back to the therapist's office that she staked out in the last episode, remember, to get information or whatever, and she breezes past the doorman and sneaks upstairs, begins picking the locks on the filing cabinet, and she swipes this file called Committee of Human Rights Moscow Edition, which I thought that was a really interesting scene. I couldn't really tell exactly what she's trying to do, if she's trying to like get more information, or if she's trying to use them to her advantage. I don't really know, but meanwhile, Philip is in Topeka with Deirdre. Yeah, Deirdre is still in his life that he had been seeing, and ironically, his fake relation with her isn't really going too well. She thinks that Philip is kind of a bit needy and informs him that if he lived in Topeka full-time, she wouldn't really want to be in a relation with him. It seems like she's just focused on sex, and that's kind of it, and she doesn't really feel like he's needy. So it seems like she's kind of seeing through him. Like, she knows definitely that he wants to acquire information out of her, and that's really the only reason why he's with her. Which, yeah, I mean, that's really the only reason, is because he wants to get information out of her. So in the Soviet Union, Oleg returns home late at night. He tells his mom that he went to meet the CIA agents that are blackmailing him, and they never showed up, and he's puzzled about why they left him off the hook. Why would they do that? But his mom seems actually thrilled about the news that, hey, this is fine. We're fine now. Everything's great. They're no longer they never showed up, so maybe you'll be able to stay here. It seems like a good thing. So Stan and Adderholt then head to the park to meet the Russian woman that they're trying to recruit as an informant, and she wants them to promise that they can protect her son if she gets caught. But rather than lie, Stan's actually very honest and says that he can't guarantee that they're going to be able to protect her. So I like that. I like that he said, look, we are not sure if we're going to actually be able to do that. So the woman stomps off, and Adderholt isn't pleased that Stan blew the deal. I mean, obviously, they wanted to try to be as, they wanted to assure her as much as they could, and Stan kind of ruined that. But Philip then returns home from Topeka, and Paige is curious about what her parents are up to. They still haven't told her what they found out, that America isn't poisoning Russia's grain, and Paige thinks that they should go to the press and expose what's happening, like Watergate. Remember, she doesn't know what's actually going on. But her parents tell her it's not an option, obviously, because they've now reconfigured the mission, and they're really, I think, just trying to figure out where to go from here. And the fact they're not letting Paige in on this, I think, is actually quite smart of them, because, again, they shouldn't get Paige that involved. We've already seen what this can do to her. So Stan gets called into his boss's office, and he learns that the CIA has decided to back off from Oleg, but they aren't happy about Stan basically blackmailing them. I mean, remember 2 weeks ago, Stan decided to do that, and the higher-ups want Stan transferred out of counterintelligence, and the only reason to really keep him around is because they think that he's sealing the deal with the Russian woman that he met at the park. They think that everything's going great there, and that's really the only reason why they're really letting Stan continue this, which, I mean, it makes sense, definitely, why they're letting Stan do that. Remember, Stan, they think is recruiting this woman and that everything's going great there. Little do they know that they're actually failing miserably doing that. So it's really not going well for Stan, as we can see. So we then get probably one of the most heartbreaking scenes of this episode, because we see Paige, she goes to Pastor Tim, and they basically just talk about, what they're going through, and how he wants to take Alice to this movie, and things like that. It was a nice scene. I like seeing those two bond. We haven't really seen it this season, but she heads over to Matthew's house, and she has to make probably the hardest decision she's made in her life, because as we know, she really likes Matthew, and she really does deep down want to be with him, but she knows exactly what she has to do. So she bursts into tears and cries that Matthew really doesn't know her. All they do really is make out, and they don't really have an actual conversation. And he says he does know her. He knows that, she likes to read, and he knows that she wants to be, something with, she wants to help people and things like that. He knows all that stuff, but of course, he doesn't really know her. Now, I thought she was going to rat them out. I genuinely thought that she was about to tell him what Philip and Elizabeth are. I thought that was going to happen, but basically, she says that, unfortunately, you can tell deep down she wants to tell him, but she says she can't be his girlfriend anymore, and Matthew's obviously blindsided. I mean, where's all this coming from all of a sudden? They seem to have such a good relationship. Why all of a sudden is she doing this? And he tries to take her hand and talk to her, but she snaps, she pushes him across the room, storms out, and it's really sad. You can tell she didn't want to do that. Like, deep down, she really did want to have a genuine relation with Matthew, but she knows, obviously, the cons of what that can do and the sort of, repercussions that'll come from that, and she is not willing to risk that. She does care about her parents, and their safety really takes principle over everything else. It's really sad. I mean, you really did want things to go well for Paige and Matthew, and unfortunately it didn't, and I really did feel bad for him in that scene. I think he just wanted to get through to her, and he just wanted to know what the hell was going on, but she wouldn't tell him, and it was just really sad to see. I really did feel bad for him in that situation. But Elizabeth's Mark Stobert tells that he has to go to Mississippi for work. They decide to tail him and see what he's up to, and to their surprise, they find him kissing another woman outside of a bar. So yeah, he's actually having an affair, it seems, with Elizabeth, and it looks like Elizabeth isn't the only one being unfaithful in their relationship, and Elizabeth obviously is a little bit upset that he's cheating on her, and Philip can tell that she actually does like him, and again, I like that she's getting genuine feelings for her Mark, because remember, this isn't just any Mark, this is a Mark that actually is doing the right thing, and that she can actually trust. So she's genuinely starting to get feelings for him. And basically, Stobert's canoodling with his other girlfriend. Philip and Elizabeth then head out to the grain field. They dig up one of his super plants and they steal it to send it back home and to really see what that's all about and if it's really working. So Elizabeth takes the grain plant to Gabriel. He's thrilled and he comments to Elizabeth on how amazing of a young woman Paige is turning out to be, even though things are really hard for her. Now, talk then turns to Gabriel leaving. Obviously, that's the main thing on their mind right now, is the fact that Gabriel's leaving. Elizabeth doesn't want him to, she doesn't want to see him go. He's leaving later that night, and he tells her to send Philip to say goodbye. It's really sad. Again, you don't want Gabriel to have to leave. This is their handler for years and years and years, and unfortunately, you're going to have to say goodbye to him, and it's just really sad that has to happen. So Elizabeth returns home. She finds Paige lying on the couch, and she explains to her mom that she had to break up with Matthew, and she was tired of trying to hide things from him, and Elizabeth commends her for making that decision. It was very bold of her to do that. It was obviously a very mature decision, and she raves about how proud she is of her. But you can tell Paige deep down is very regretful. Like, she genuinely liked Matthew. She really wanted to be with him, and when Philip gets home, he checks in on Paige. He gives her this really nice pep talk and seems much more understanding than Elizabeth is when it comes to matter of the heart. That's something that Philip has always mastered better at than Elizabeth, is that he always knows how to talk to her. Like he says, I know how tough this is for you. And you can tell Philip, he's had to go through a lot of stuff as well. I mean, there's been a lot of things that he's wanted to do, such as keep something with Martha, but he had to leave her. And I think this is very similar to that, where he cared about someone, that being Martha. He wanted to be with her, I think, deep down, but he knew in the end that he couldn't do that. He didn't want to get her involved, and Paige had to do a very similar thing with Matthew, and I thought this was just a really good scene overall. I really liked the way that was done. So we then get this scene between Stan and Renee, and this scene was very interesting. They're watching Breaking Away on TV, and she's telling the story about skinny dipping at the same quarry where they shot the film, but he's barely listening, and she turns off the TV, and she knows very well there's something going on, there's something going on with him. Now, before, he's tried to dodge all these questions. He's told her, oh, there's nothing going on, you don't need to worry about it. He just kind of changed the subject. But finally, he actually does open up to her, and this could really, damage things, because he tells her everything, that his boss was going to get fired the other day. He called him in and told him that there's this thing. He asked his boss to make this happen. He was not happy about it. No one was. And he's telling her basically very basic knowledge, and she really isn't understanding it. And basically he tells her to forget about that part, and then he tells her some more nothing. So you can tell he definitely is nervous to talk to her. And that's not just because of her being suspicious. It's also because of Stan's nature. Stan's always been not exactly a personable person. He hasn't really known how to talk to people. He's always been kind of he's always been kind of awkward and things like that. That's just who Stan is as a person. I think that definitely does play well into this scene, but also because of the fact that Stan really does not trust Renee. He knows definitely there's something very deep going on with Renee that he definitely should not trust. She does not, seem like someone who is trustworthy. So obviously he's going to try to dodge as many questions as possible, but there's only really so far you can go with that. I thought this was definitely very well done. So back at the Jennings house, like I said, we got the scene between Philip and Paige, but we go to Moscow where we get another glimpse of Oleg on a new mission. His mother said she was in prison because her husband was a high-ranking person in the party, and presumably the wives were jailed as collateral, a way to keep her husband in line while she was detained in a gulag. And Oleg goes to an archive, and he calls up an old file, which is Yelena Alexandrovna Barova, 1947 to 1951. So it seems like he's going to try to track down the husband possibly, and maybe find, where this husband is in this, in this camp, basically. As we know, she was imprisoned in a camp, and we also know that Philip's father was also in a camp, in a lumber camp. So I've heard some people say that they're thinking that maybe Oleg and Philip could possibly be related, and honestly, it's not that far off. These two have never shared a scene together, first of all. Remember that. They've never, in 5 seasons, we've had Oleg on for 3 seasons, these two have never shared a scene together ever in the show, and if that's, I think there definitely is a big reason for that. It's not because they want to keep the story separate from everything else. It's because these stories are eventually going to emerge as one, and they're definitely going to collide at some point. So I really don't think it's that crazy if Philip and Oleg are possibly brothers. I mean, I don't know if they're actual like blood brothers or if they're half brothers, but I definitely think there's a deeper connection. I don't think it's no coincidence that Philip's father was in a lumber camp and Oleg's parents were also in a lumber camp. I don't think there's any sort of coincidence there. I think definitely that is something that is very much that was definitely much what they were trying to get at. I think there definitely is more to Oleg and Philip than we think, and honestly, like I said, I very well do agree with that theory that Oleg could very well be related to Philip. We'll have to see where that goes. But then we get to the ending here, and I really did love this ending. Philip heads back out to say goodbye to Gabriel before he leaves, and Gabriel tells Phil that he will probably never see him again, and Gabriel reminisces about all the horrible things that he did years ago for the organization, all the innocent lives that he took, and he believed he was doing it for all the good of the people, just for the greater good. And it was because of all these terrible things he had to do, but he did it for a higher purpose, and he did it to protect everyone. And before Gabriel leaves, Philip asks him something that's been bothering him. Is Renee a spy? And Gabriel, he's laughing about the idea. He says that Philip is losing it. As far as he knows, that's not the case. There's no possible way that something like that could happen. But then Gabriel leaves. He leaves Philip with something that he probably should have told him at the beginning, that he was actually wrong, that maybe it was a good idea to keep Paige out of all this. And with that, Gabriel leaves the door. Philip will probably never see him again, but he's now got him thinking about a bunch of questions, and that is the way this episode ends. Really great stuff overall. Let's just get in this episode and where I think this is going to go from here. So, as usual, guys, really great episode, but like I said, there definitely is a lot to talk about. First of all, goddamn, Gabriel, why did you have to leave and say that to him? I mean, there was literally anything you could have said, and you had to say that. After all of that, you had to tell Philip that. I mean, from the very beginning, Gabriel was the one who wanted them to let Paige in on what was going on. Gabriel was the one who told them, you gotta tell her eventually, and that's gonna be a hard day, and that she should go to him. Like, why did you go through this whole process only to realize that, oh no, maybe it's not a good idea for her to be let in? I mean, just now it was really not the best time to do that. His timing is impeccable. It was just, I can't believe that Gabriel did that to them. But yeah, I would definitely agree that letting Paige in on what happened has basically destroyed her life. I mean, she's thinking things in a whole new way. She's asking him all kinds of questions. It's better than her, not knowing anything, but they definitely could have kept her out of more of what was going on, for their missions and things like that. Yes, she questions them a lot, but that did not mean they need to let her in on everything. And now that they have, I think it really has changed that overall relationship, and I think it's going to be that way for a while. I think Paige, none the wiser, is going to continue to ask questions. I think she's going to be let in on what's going on. Now it's just too late, even though Gabriel said that, now it's just too late. They need to let her in on what's going on because she knows what's going on. She doesn't know everything that's going on. She doesn't know how to reconfigure the grains and things like that. But honestly, yeah, I think definitely if Paige wasn't let in on what was going on here, this definitely could have been a much easier situation. She could have just been a normal kid. She could have had a relation with Matthew. And I think deep down, Philip wants her to have that. Elizabeth is a little bit more tensive because Elizabeth has always been committed to her job. And, Philip, I think, really does want to have that, though. He wants her to have that normal life. He wants her to be able to be that normal kid, not go through the same kind of things that he had to go through. But unfortunately, that's not how this is going to work. She now knows everything that's going on, and now that Gabriel said that, I mean, it seems like this entire thing was a mistake, and I wouldn't disagree. It really wasn't. Now, Gabriel's claiming that Renee is not related, is not a KGB. But how does he know that? Like, he said, as far as I know, remember. So maybe there is some sort of other organization that Renee's a part of. I just don't trust her. Something about her, I really am not trusting her. The fact that Stan just told her this information, and that she was so interested, sure, maybe she feels like, he is being dismissive and that he's not telling her everything, that he's hiding something from her. Sure, I can understand that, but I just feel like there's more going on there than we think. There's just something about her I really don't trust, and I'm interested in seeing really what's going to happen, because like I said, I really just don't trust Renee right now, but we'll have to see where that goes. And then the theory, like I said, everyone seems to have this theory that Stan and Oleg could possibly be related, and I don't think it's too far off. I think it actually does make a lot of sense if you do think about it. They both had dads who were in a lumber camp. We found out that Philip's father's in a lumber camp last week, and now we know that, Oleg is trying to track down said father, so I think that definitely is going to go someplace. We'll just have to see really where that's going to go. If those two are related, it would make a lot of sense. Again, they've never shared any screen time together. As far as I know, Arcady has. I'm pretty sure Arcady did have some sort of screen time with them, but Oleg has never had a scene between these two. So I think definitely there's a very good reason why I think that they very well could be related. I don't know if they're actually siblings or if they're just related in some way than they think, but it honestly would make a lot of sense, especially if they're going back to Russia next season. Then it would make even more sense of why we're following Oleg in Russia. I just feel like it makes a lot more sense why they're doing that. And then Stan. As much as Stan, I think, wants to get this woman, as we know, he now has failed. He told this woman everything that's going on. She's not, he told her, we can't ensure you that we're going to keep your son safe. Sure, he was honest with her. Honesty is best policy. But in this situation, you're trying to recruit her. You're trying to make sure that, you can stay with us and that you'll be fine. But by doing that, I mean, that's basically ruined everything. So I don't really know if this is going to work out for Stan. I think he kind of ruined what they really were trying to do here. So I don't really know where that's going to go. I think all that definitely is going to be very interesting. Overall, guys, I definitely really did like this episode. Even though it wasn't the episode I wanted to be, like I said, I kind of want the entire episode to be a conversation between Gabriel and Paige. I just feel like we've been building up to that moment for so long since Gabriel was leaving and since Paige was kind of in a crossroads in her life. She's in a very weird place right now because she doesn't really know where her loyalties lie. I think by breaking up with Matthew, she knows where it is. But I just feel like the entire episode, we could have honestly, entire episode that was just a conversation. I would have been completely fine with that. You could have still had the Stan stuff. You could have still had the Oleg stuff. If the entire episode was just a conversation, I would have absolutely loved this episode. I was a little bit let down by that. But because the scenes were so good, the ending with Gabriel I thought was perfect. I knew he was going to leave, so I'm not surprised that he did leave. The scene with, Paige breaking on Matthew, all that stuff was so powerful. I thought that definitely was very well done. Then the only other thing, like I said, is Elizabeth. Elizabeth, you can tell, is clearly starting to gain feelings for Stobert, and you can tell that Philip is a little bit thrown off by that. I mean, she hasn't really had a Mark that she's had a real connection to, and I think Stobert could very well be Elizabeth's Martha. I know a lot of people say that Philip, he doesn't have feelings for Martha, but I think he genuinely did feel bad for her. Now, was it romantic? No, but I think he definitely did feel bad for her. He didn't want to have to keep this secret from her anymore, and I think Elizabeth, she's getting a genuine connection to Stobert, and I'm very interested in seeing where that's going to go. Overall, guys, like I said, I really did enjoy this episode. Even though it wasn't exactly the episode I wanted to be, I still really did enjoy it. I'm definitely going to give The Americans, Season 5, Episode 8, The Commission on Human Rights, a 4.5 out of 5, or an A-. So with that, guys, we are now done with the first half of the season. We're going to quickly get into the second half. The second half is usually just balls to the wall, all kinds of stuff happens. So I don't know what's going to happen in the second half of the season, but I feel like we're definitely in for quite a ride. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode. Love your thoughts, and it really did. Always love to hear your thoughts and things like that. But that's my review. Hope you enjoy it. We'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.